Do I think arguably there has been some thrilling news in regards to Hedera as of late? Well, arguably, I would say yeah, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and the reason why is because according to Generation Infinity, the Reserve Bank of Australia selects Hedera technology as core infrastructure in a project called Project Acacia, which I thought was pretty cool. I mean, this is pretty massive in my opinion. Now, people like to say, okay, who cares about this? HBAR is still around 30 times lower than $3. Yeah, I get that. However, I think something like this could really have future implications for Hedera if, let's say, the market sentiment were to change in a massive way, right? Because if I take a look at it right here, sometimes people are going to take a look back at stuff like this, and I think it could affect it later on, right? Sometimes we see during an altcoin season, people take a look back at what a project has achieved previously. So I think stuff like this could really matter. But of course, it's not really going to be instant. It's not really going to showcase much as of right now. But I think it kind of adds to the quote unquote resume when it comes to Hedera, especially with, again, something as massive as the Reserve Bank of Australia selecting Hedera technology as core infrastructure in Project Acacia, which I thought was, again, just pretty awesome. Now, fun fact, by the way, I've visited Australia many times. Now, if someone's wondering why, my dad actually bought a home in near Melbourne, Australia. I'm not joking, by the way. It's actually right in front of, or beside, I should say, Monash University. It's in Clayton, Victoria. But yeah, besides that point, he got rid of it though. But I'm saying still. So when I was visiting Australia, I used to go to Perth sometimes, and Sorrento, I think, is an amazing place. It's like above Perth. I also like the Swan River in Perth. But yeah, I mean, if I had to live in Australia, I'd probably want to live in Sorrento. There's the aquarium of Western Australia or something. I forgot the name, but I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, besides that point though, I just thought it was kind of a fun fact. But here's the thing. If I take a look at something like Hedera, people like to say, okay, why is it even having adoption to begin with? No one cares about this. Well, let's think about this. Hedera Hashgraph, it doesn't even utilize traditional blockchain technology. So just by default, it's just a little bit different than a lot of its quote unquote competitors, right? Because Hedera does have a lot of competitors, but if we think about it, because by nature it's just a little bit different, some of the other projects that are competitors, they in some cases can't even really compete from a fundamental standpoint of view when compared to Hedera, because again, Hedera Hashgraph doesn't even utilize traditional blockchain technology. Not to mention, Hedera has a governing council that includes Google, that includes Dell, that includes Mondelez, and we even saw FedEx recently join the Hedera council. So really, in the grand scheme of things, I think Hedera has the fundamentals, and so far I like the adoption. However, again, people like to tell me, oh, wow, HBAR is not doing good whatsoever. This is so bad, they like to say, because again, it's around 30 times lower than $3, which I'm still thinking about $3, but we'll wait and see. But here's the thing. If we take a look at HBAR as of right now, the market cap is like, slightly above 4 billion, right? Let's just say for simplicity's sake, it's around 4 billion. The thing is this, back in January of 2025, the market cap was around 13 billion. Again, let's just say for simplicity's sake, it's 13 billion. So if we assume right now, market cap for simplicity's sake, 4 billion, not too long ago, basically a little bit over a year ago, it was around 13 billion. We're pretty much over 3 times lower than that. Over 3 times. The thing is this, if let's say we just went back to where that was, right? Anything I dollar cost average here, again, literally not that long ago, we were pretty much like over 3 times more than where we are right now in terms of market cap in regards to HBAR. So the thing is this, is Bitcoin around 3 times lower than its all-time high? No, it's not. So when I take a look at that right there, when it comes to HBAR, I just don't want to give up, because if let's say HBAR just goes back to where it once was not that long ago, a little bit over a year ago, which I don't even think was an altcoin season, by the way. Again, does anyone think that January of 2025 was an altcoin season? I don't. So if HBAR just went back to that, I'm going to Outback Steakhouse. That's the way you take a look at it. Even though, again, Outback actually, the steakhouse originated in the US, right? But I just said Outback Steakhouse because I love Australia, or should I say Coles, right? The supermarket. I think that's a better fit. I should say that, which is pretty famous in Australia. If you know, you know. But yeah, besides that point, if I take a look at it again, if HBAR just went back to where it once was a little bit over a year ago, let's just say we ignore an altcoin season. If it just went back to that, again, where it once was back in January of 2025, I'm already quite happy actually. Now, the thing is this, that we already know HBAR could do without an altcoin season. So again, sure, $3, we would need a market cap at that point of around 128 billion, considering the current circulating supply of HBAR. But of course, that would require an altcoin season, in my opinion. But we just saw around a 13 billion market cap without an altcoin season. So if it goes to around a 13 billion market cap again, you know, I'm not going to complain. But if it went to like around a 128 billion market cap, in which case it would have at the price of $3, I wouldn't necessarily complain either way, because if I take a look at it, okay, around 128 billion may sound kind of ridiculous, but you know, BNB reached over 100 billion in terms of market cap. And I even saw that in 2021. So I don't know if this sounds so ridiculous, especially when I consider arguably just how much more revolutionary, at least in my opinion, Hedera is when compared to something like the BNB chain. In which case, you know, of course, it has a big fan base. It's more popular than something like Hedera, in my opinion, but still, Hedera Hashgraph, it doesn't even utilize traditional blockchain technology. But yeah, besides that point though, if I take a look at, for instance, people like to tell me, oh, when it comes to Hedera, no one's going to care about these advantages. Well, who typically cares about these slight advantages, in my opinion, in some cases? Enterprises, and also in some cases developers. In the retail side of things, maybe it doesn't really matter that much, because who's going to care about like a 1 or 2 second difference in some cases, right? But for an enterprise or a developer, that could matter like over time, where we're taking a look at thousands of actions a day, you know, accumulated over weeks, months, years. Again, those couple seconds, sure, it may not matter in the grand scheme of things if it's only once, but if it's like thousands of times a day, repeated over weeks, months, years, that could add up later on. So I think some developers, some enterprises out there may care about the hypothetical slight advantages that Hedera may have when compared to some other projects out there that typically, naturally, won't really have some of these advantages, because quite simply, where a lot of them are using traditional blockchain technology, whereas something like Hedera Hashgraph simply doesn't use traditional blockchain technology, again, right? So yeah, when I take a look at it right there, I mean, people like to tell me, oh, you know, Hedera, no one's going to care about it. But sometimes I like to beg to differ, because when I take a look at the fundamentals, I just think that it's just arguably better than even some of the more established projects out there that I do see. However, even besides that, you know, when it comes to Hedera, my thing is pretty simple. I'm just going to still be dollar cost averaging. That's it. You know, when it comes to HBAR once a month, though, you know, I'm not going to do any more than that. But I'm just saying, like, that's what I'm going to do per month. I just treat it like a routine. But really, at the end of the day, it's just kind of like a background activity, right? It's like if, let's say, I planted a tree. Sure, I'd care for it. I'd water it. I'd put fertilizer. But it's something that goes on in the background of my life. You know, I'm still going to be hanging out with my friends, going out and stuff like that, and you know, just living my life in general as the tree grows, right? I mean, I'm not necessarily thinking about it 24/7, but I'm aware that it's there. It's kind of no different here, where I hold and I wait, and really that's about it. I mean, I still live my life anyways, whether I'm holding or I'm not, so I'd rather be holding. But me holding while living my life doesn't require any sort of extra energy, because me reading the news, me reading the updates and stuff like that, that's stuff I would naturally do anyways. So it's not like this requires any sort of additional attention. No, it goes on in the background as I live my life. So when people like to tell me, oh, why don't I feel, you know, additional pressure by holding? Or should I say, they ask me, why am I not feeling additional pressure, right? I should frame it that way, but I'm saying, you know, I think that's a better way to say it. But still, when people ask me that question, my response is, what pressure? Because I'm living my life anyways, right? And by me holding, it's just a background activity. So it's not really adding any sort of additional pressure to begin with. But yeah, besides that point though, this is just kind of my perspective when it comes to something like Hedera. I just haven't given up, and yeah, that's kind of my mindset. So I'm still gonna be waiting. That's about it, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But I just thought it was a pretty cool update that I saw. So of course I wanted to talk about it in regards to Hedera, and again when it comes to what happened recently regarding the Reserve Bank of Australia. So yeah, hopefully I'll see y'all in the next video, because I'm going to be making more updated videos when it comes to Hedera, so hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. And again, thank you for watching. It's Mali the Captain, and I'll see y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.